Hi students, it's Ms. Tran. Today we are going to be taking a different angle on the Odyssey by looking at the story of Telemachus, which is part of the epic that we haven't had a chance to look at yet. So before we do so, let's take a look at the image of Superman. So with Superman, the question that I'd like to pose is, how do children growing up view their parents as superheroes? Or maybe, let's be more specific, how do sons view their fathers as superheroes? So let's ponder that question for a bit and then bring it into relation with the epic. So in this epic, we have a father to son relationship that is evident. We have Odysseus as a father, and then we have Telemachus as a son. But then, of course, growing up, Telemachus lacks the father presence, right? Because Odysseus is out at sea, he's fighting monsters, he's going through obstacles and tribulations, and meanwhile, Telemachus is at home, not knowing exactly how to grow up with a father figure. And even though he hears stories of his fathers being this ultimate hero, he really doesn't know much about him. So we're going to delve into that today, keeping in mind that Odysseus is somewhat of a superhero, some kind of fictional character that Telemachus has to live up to. And we're going to take a look at how exactly Telemachus grows through this absence of his father. So, number one is taking a look at the role of sons in Homeric society. So if we're taking a look at Homeric society, we see that there's a huge emphasis on upholding reputation. So the stress was to uphold their father's reputation through two things. One was speech, and the second one was through the ability to fight well. So by having these strong characteristics of speaking and fighting well, sons were able to carry on their father's reputations. And by upholding these reputations, they're not just representing their fathers, but they're upholding these generational qualities which have been passed down from generation, from the great-grandfather to grandfather and father. So in other words, the story of the Odyssey can't only be understood as Odysseus as a hero, which we've been talking about a lot so far, but also as a coming-of-age story. And coming of age means this idea of spiritual and physical growth. So taking a look at the meaning of names, we also have some common Homeric conventions. Conventions means that something passed down from tradition through tradition. And in this case, the sons were named after their father's best heroic characteristics. And of course, in Homeric society, the best characteristics were known through their abilities to fight and speak well. So Telemachus' name means he who fights afar. And as we have seen through our readings, Odysseus is well known for his skills in the bow and arrow. So the fact that Telemachus has been named as the origins of being a skilled archer and warrior, he knows that he has that reputation to uphold as a fighter. So from birth, we can see that the name symbolizes Telemachus' step into manhood, the fact that he has a role to fulfill by upholding his name and father's reputation. And of course, we have that duty as a son. So throughout the epic, we have a huge focus on Odysseus and not so much Telemachus. He kind of takes a back burner. But in the edition that we're reading right now, they omit the first 4 books of the epic. And those first 4 books focus on Telemachus' story. So we take a look at the quote here. Athena visits Telemachus during these first few books, and she herself acts as a mentor to Telemachus. In this quote, she says, "From nearby, Athene came to him, likening herself to Mentor in voice and appearance, and addressed him in winged words. Telemachus, you are to be no thoughtless man, no coward. If truly the strong force of your father is instilled in you, such a man he was for accomplishing word and action." Now, taking this quote out of context, we haven't read the first 4 books, but to give some background information, Telemachus in the first few books is basically sitting at home and he's sulking, he's whining, he's complaining because he doesn't have a father figure. And what is he seeing at home? Well, he's seeing his mother Penelope get wooed by all these suitors who were barraging through their things, eating all their food, taking all their drinks, and as a young man that he is, he's thinking, can't we just get these men out of here? I can't stand them anymore. What are we going to do? And he's basically just whining and not taking any action to do anything about it. So keep that as background because that's how Telemachus starts off in the epic. And then he goes through a journey of spiritual and mental growth. Now moving on, this is how Telemachus' journey takes action in the Odyssey. So in book 1, we have Telemachus being visited by Athena in disguise. Athena being the goddess of wisdom, and also note that she was Odysseus' mentor in the later books. She helps Telemachus realize his potential that, hey, you can't sit back and complain anymore. You have to take action and live up to your father's reputation. And this is how that sparks Telemachus' realization that he has a potential and name to live up to in becoming great like his father. Moving on, book 2, Telemachus decides to call an open assembly to the public. He calls this open assembly because he's sick of hearing and being around all the suitors, and he needs the public's help and eye in helping him get rid of these suitors from his home. But then the funny part is, after he calls this assembly and after speaking out loud and presenting himself to the crowds, he goes back and he kind of cries. He has a sense of self-doubt and lack of confidence, and you can see that because he's not really exactly a man yet. He's still a very young man/boy. In book 3, he escapes from home without his mother knowing with Athena, and then he embarks upon his journey by visiting his father's friends. So one of them is King Nestor, and with King Nestor he tells the story of King Agamemnon, and we're going to get into more detail about that later on. In book 4, he also visits King Menelaus, and then King Menelaus notes that Telemachus has great potential to become a leader like his father. Now, what's the significance of all these books right at the beginning of the epic? For one thing, it allows us as readers to chronicle Telemachus' growth. The first 4 books are known as Telemachia, and there's a dual focus on these 4 books. One would be for Telemachus to gain more information about his father. His father, yes, is like a Superman figure, but in being that Superman figure, he's kind of this fictional character in his mind where he's like, okay, I have to live up to my father's reputation, but I really don't know anything about him because I never grew up with him. So in embarking upon this journey, Telemachus journeys into his manhood. And this is the significance of each of those books. So the first book shows that Telemachus is only 21 years old. He doesn't know if his father's still alive, and he's filled with self-doubt, pity, and knows that he has no confidence to overtake the suitors, until Athena visits him and tells him, as we saw in that quote, that he needs to do something. He has to take action. The second book shows Telemachus protesting of the suitors being in his home. And by protesting, he's starting to break out of his eggshell. He's showing oratory skills and persuading mass audiences. And he's starting to show the assertion of power in being able to call people to an assembly. Book 3 reinforces Telemachus' role of being devoted and loyal to a father figure. Now, linking it back to the story of King Agamemnon had a son, Orestes, and Orestes took vengeance on the murderers for his father. So, when Nestor shares the story and when Athena reinforces Telemachus' role as a son, she creates a link between that story of Orestes and tells him that he has to fulfill that same role. And then in book 4, when he visits Menelaus, it starts to represent his entrance into manhood because now he's taking action against the suitors and living up to his father's reputation. So what is the point of chronicling Telemachus' growth and journey? Well, it shows that as a young prince, Telemachus is able to demonstrate this growth from a child to a man. From being this whiny, well, let's just say brat, he grows out of his shell and he becomes a man in being able to take down the suitors with his father. In Book 1, Athena warns Telemachus that you must not indulge yourself in childish behavior, since you're no longer at such an age to do so. And she's right. At some point, even with ourselves, we have to grow out of our shells, and we can't always be whining. We always have to take action. So by the end of the epic, Telemachus demonstrates that he's able to go through this rite of passage into adulthood. And then the ending of the story also implies that he would be a great successor to Odysseus, and rightfully so, because he's fulfilling his duty as the son of Odysseus. So that concludes our lecture today, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. See you next time. Thank you.